Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing The Borrowed Hills by Scott Preston. I'll talk very briefly about the author, go into a spoiler-free overview of the book, talk about what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, who I'd recommend the book to, and finish off with what I will be reading for next time. This is Scott Preston's first novel. He earned a PhD, I believe, in the King's College in London, a PhD in English literature, and was a philosophy major in college. But this is his first novel. I couldn't find much else about him online, but a very, very interesting start to a career. Really, really great first novel to have under your belt. And this book is about a man named Steve, who's our main character and narrator through the novel. He is talking about his time as a sheep farmer. In roughly 2001, there's an outbreak of hoof and mouth disease. The book takes place across a couple farms in northern England. There's like an area between England and Scotland, and that's where the book takes place. He is the son of a sheep farmer, and so he has grown up on a farm. And there's this outbreak of hoof and mouth, and the government comes in and requires that the sheep be destroyed. And he is furious about this. His dad is in ailing health, and this is what these people do for a living. And so he goes to what he is told is kind of the epicenter of this outbreak in the area, and he confronts a local farmer named William, and the two of them kind of strike up something like a mutual respect. A couple years goes by. Uh, uh, Steve gets out of town and becomes a driver, a truck driver. Comes back when his father passes away, and basically the two of them, Steve and William, begin kind of enmeshed in a world of kind of criminality and crime. The book has a lot of touchstones of noir, but the thing to recommend the book is really just the absolute immersion in this world that, you and me, most I've said Westerners don't really know a lot about sheep farming. And the book is very, very excellent at kind of putting you in this world, giving you these characters who feel like real three-dimensional people and showing what their world must be like. These aren't a lot of quippy quipsters. This is very much like men of very, very few words who are doing really, really hard work with very little uh, uh, economic reward for what they're doing. But they come from a long line of farmers before them who are all connected to this land. And I thought that was just really excellent. Um, that is really the main thing to recommend the novel. It's pretty quick. It's about 300 pages, and the absolute immersion in the world is really, to me, the biggest thing. There's a lot of very dry English humor, so if that's your thing as well, you're going to really like it. Um, but yeah, I just really enjoyed those aspects of it, and I think that it has a pretty, I don't want to say standard crime plot, but it's nothing that you've probably not seen in some way, shape, or form before. There's some version of a femme fatale, but it feels different enough to where it feels fresh. And part of that is the setting. He does, I think, a very good job of by telling you about the different types of sheep and the topography and all these different kinds of land and describing the landscape of this area in just very inventive ways. Again, makes it feel very lived in, makes it feel like very like a real place. The novel's not perfect. There are some things I had issue with. There's some plot points that I think could have been explained a little bit better, and some parts that were a little confusing to me. There's uh, there's some action scenes in the novel I think could have been written a little bit stronger. There are some very evocative scenes early on, especially when they're going through the hoof and mouth disease of destroying the sheep, and that scene I thought was very, very powerful. But the ending didn't land 100% for me, and there's some characters who kind of come in the novel and come out of the novel, um, and he doesn't do, like, I would say, I think Brandon Sanderson described it as like wood chopping, so like kind of really basic stuff like how old is this character, what does this character physically look like. He doesn't do some of that, so there's times in the novel where time has passed and you're like, how much time has passed, who is this character, how old is this character, which is something that kind of plays in the book quite a bit. I think he handles themes really strongly. There's a theme throughout the book of just like these people realize that gentrification is happening even in the early 2000s when this takes place. There's like one of the plot points later in the book is there is this kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of a gentrified farm where tourists come and they have like the experience of farming without actually having to farm, and they've pumped millions of dollars into this illusion or a simulation almost of a farm to draw tourists in. And I thought that was all really that dichotomy between the old and the new I thought was really powerful. And just the idea of kind of this job that you realize that there's not a lot of people who are coming up behind you who want to have, and why do you continue to do this really difficult work. And there's a couple points in the book where there's just really difficult work that's being done. I think there's a part where they're trekking hundreds of sheep that I thought was also really powerful. If you are someone who enjoyed Guy Ritchie movies, the closest thing to me would be like probably the tone of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels is like the thing that when I was reading this, I said, if you liked that movie and you liked to, your Guy Ritchie on more of the serious side, somewhere between Lock, Stock, and Snatch, but much closer to Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, you're going to really enjoy this. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. For a first novel, I thought it was really good. It wasn't perfect, but I think that there was some really excellent parts of it. Like I said, there's some plot points that I think could have given a little bit more detail. The character of Colin, who's kind of one of the villains in the novel, I thought was really a really good bad guy. I kind of, to the issues that I had earlier in the book when I mentioned kind of not being able to visualize certain things, like some of the fight scenes. It was hard for me sometimes to visualize it. That was also one of the things I would have liked if I had kind of been able to visualize that character a little bit more. But these are ultimately kind of small things. The only thing I would say is if you're someone who has a hard time reading about animals and animals suffering or animals being harmed or animals being killed, these are sheep farmers, and oftentimes the main thing that kicks off the book is them killing a bunch of sheep due to hoof and mouth, and so they don't really spare details about that, and so if that's something that is going to bother you, I would recommend not reading this book. I wouldn't say it's like gory or unnecessarily harsh, but it's real, and they talk about that. And that scene is kind of it's a rough scene to kind of get through, but I also think it kind of gives you a tone for the rest of the book of just like the difficulties of these men, their lives, and just what they have to do day in and day out. So that is The Borrowed Hills by Scott Preston. Next time I'm going to be returning to Neal Stephenson, and we're going to be reading Termination Shock, which is one of his novels I haven't had a chance to read yet. As always, if you've liked the video, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and I'll have my Twitter link below if you want to check out my Twitter there. Until next time, bye.